just felt that was really appropriate for a budget video. Just a little info about me, because that was weird, I guess. It's just my favorite song in the world, but pretty much that is in my will to be played at my funeral. You can verify. Just because I think it would be really funny. Everyone's all sad and crying. Well, I mean, if they're sad I died, they might not be. If not, fuck you. But people could be really sad that I died. And I just think, like, if you were at a funeral and they start playing that fucking Arms of the Angel, that song that makes everyone cry, you know, it makes like puppies and kitties in the commercial and all that stuff. He hates that song. It's in his will for that not to be in our funeral. But, you know, you get all that sad crap at a funeral, but if all of a sudden somebody started playing some freaking music like that, you would bust out laughing. I would bust out laughing. So that's my quirky way of injecting my personality to make people laugh at my funeral. We did our video on how we got out of debt for you guys, and we didn't have time the following weekend to do the budget one, so we're doing it today. Today's video is strictly going to be about how we budget. Once we moved into our house, basically we decided that we had a mortgage and it was really important that we not fuck this up, basically. So what we did at the time was we've always shared a bank account, and it's, you know, it's just what we've always done. We've been together since high school. I mean, you don't have to share a bank account to do this, I guess. Anyway, so we always just use the one bank with our one checking account. Well, what we did was we opened another checking account with a completely different bank. And we decided to use Justin's paycheck to do this. And then mine was the rest of the stuff. What we did was we calculated exactly how much we had to have every month. Like we pulled all our bills and we're like, okay, we have the light bill, we have this. This was kind of like our primitive way of budgeting at the time. We have our cable bill, our car notes this, the house notes this, the gas is this. We basically took everything that we have to pay every month, figured it out, and then with the time we decided to use Justin's paycheck can be direct deposited in, I guess, as many accounts as you want. You just choose how much. So we took that number we had and we put it onto we put Justin's paycheck into that account. Now, we do not keep that account's checking card, like the debit card that comes with it, we keep it locked away. You don't want to ever use that card or the checks for it unless it is only for your bills, because that way you are never short on your bills are always paid, like always. And if you don't have any debt right now, it's a good way to keep you from going into debt or losing your car or your house. So now we have his check and whatever I get when I babysit or YouTube money and stuff that doesn't go back into my channel, then I'll put into that. So basically that account is always for your bills. That is it. You do not use that account for anything. You don't touch it. That's why you lock away the card, because if you have the card with you and you're like, oh, I really want to go out to eat, but I don't have enough in this account, that's going to keep you from doing little things like that that are going to screw you up. So open a separate account, have your paycheck go into there, and if they don't do direct deposit, you're just going to have to do it yourself. You're just going to have to discipline yourself to do that, to put that amount in that account and not touch it, and that way your bills are always paid. So that's basically the very first thing we did that you could consider kind of budgeting. After that, once we got comfortable with that, we got our system down that our bills would always be paid. We decided it was time to see where our money was going, because when you do this, you're going to realize, like, why don't I have, like, I know for instance, okay, you have just a part of your paycheck put in there, and then in your other account it's like you have plenty of money, you feel like, but then it's like, where did it go? Oh shit, I need toilet paper. Where do I have money for toilet paper? This is when you need to start making a budget. And so what we did was we took 3 months to see where our money was going. We just shopped and did everything we did like we normally would, but Justin would download the bank what was it called?
Transactions.
Yeah, he would download the bank transactions and put them into software, and I'll let him talk about that.
Yeah, so most banks will let you download your transaction history for a certain amount of time. So what I would do is, say, just for example, if we started January 1st and we were doing our 3 months of spending, I would download each of those months and put them into software that would let me assign categories to what each transaction was. And there's a few different kinds. The one that I use is called YNAB, or You Need a Budget, which is a paid software, but there are free ones. A popular one is mint.com, which is free to use. There's also personalcapital.com, I believe, that is also free. And those will let you import your bank transactions and categorize your spending so that you can see exactly how much you're spending on going out, or incidental purchases, things that you don't necessarily realize at the time that you're spending money on. But that kind of gives you a whole picture, and it will, by assigning the transactions into categories, it makes it easier to see where those big chunks of money are going.
So from there, we had our 3 months and exactly where the money went, and it was put into the budget software. So then it was time to kind of evaluate, what are we doing with our lives? No, it was time to kind of evaluate what was going on with our money. For instance, we were spending a ton of money eating out. And don't get me wrong, we go out to eat probably every weekend, sometimes during the week. But you guys, we're going out to eat like...
It was almost every night.
Yeah, almost every night. And I want to put this in there just because I have a lot of fibro followers. I do understand, because at the time I was working, and when you are working and like for 8 to 10 hours a day and you have fibromyalgia, cooking is not always possible. And this guy doesn't, I mean, he enjoys cooking, but you don't really cook that much.
Yeah, and I'm not really good at it.
Well, I think he's okay, but he just, so, I can't tell you what's best for you. It really probably, some people might have to eat out more often just because they can't cook, or, I mean, I don't know. I don't know your circumstances. I'm just telling you guys, because I don't want anyone mad at me. I'm just telling you guys, this is something that we noticed a lot. And the solution we kind of came up with when I was working was that he would kind of help me in the kitchen more. So if any prepping needed to be done, I would tell him how to prep exactly. Or, I mean, it's not hard. You can read instructions. But I would cook this stuff, and then he would clean up. You can do things like that. Now, once I stopped working, it's been like not really a problem at all as a housewife. I take my duties as a homemaker very seriously. I know that there's some people that are like, they think it's just, I gotta sit on the couch all day and watch TV, but cooking, cleaning, laundry and stuff is very important to me. I look at it as a job on top of YouTube. So I do all the cooking now, but that was a place that we were like, holy crap, we are wasting a ton of money. Another thing we did too, when it was still kind of like I was in a lot of pain when I would get off work because of my fibromyalgia, we would go to restaurants, but we realized we're going and we're not eating all our food. We're usually taking take-home boxes, and then half the time I wouldn't even eat mine. So we started splitting stuff, like, because the restaurant portions are overpriced. Or not overpriced. Well, they're overpriced and they're oversized. But so we started splitting them, and that cut down on our food budget a lot. And we still do that sometimes. Not as much as we used to, just because I feel like the only time he gets to have meat now is when we go out to eat, and I want to force him to be a vegetarian. So anyway, that's the first thing we noticed. The second thing, a huge chunk of our budget was our cable bill. We had it was AT&T Uverse. We had what do we have? Like every single movie channel there was, and the thing is, the movie channels aren't really what costs that much, because I would call whenever our free trial would run out to cancel it, and I would talk them into basically giving me a longer free trial. And every time, I mean, that's a trick if you have cable and you can't get rid of your movie channels. You can call your cable provider and be like, yeah, well, sometimes I would have to get crazy. I have to be like, I'm canceling my cable completely. And they'd be like, well, let's give you the extra movie channels for free, and we'll give you this for free. So that's a little trick you can use. But it just was way too much money. How much were we spending? $3 something?
Yeah, I think all told our monthly cable bill was almost $300. It wasn't quite $300, but it was getting close to it.
he really had to talk me into cutting the cable off because I like my shows. As older people say, my stories. I like my stories. That was really, really difficult for me. I don't know why. I just had so many shows I liked, and you know what we ended up deciding to do was he told me we're gonna cut it off. We're gonna give, would you tell me, 3 months?
Yeah, we decided to just try it and see.
Yeah,
what would happen.
he had to babystep me into it, and afterwards we already had Netflix, but we got the Netflix where you would send us 2 movies, and we cut that down because, I mean,
Everything's streaming now, so.
yeah, so we still get movies in the mail because sometimes you can't get stuff streaming, but we only get one now. And we added Hulu Plus. Regular Hulu, I think you can watch on a computer, but you still don't have access to all the shows, right? I think some are Hulu Plus only.
I don't know how they do it now. There may be some that are Hulu Plus only, but I know that you can watch a lot of shows for free online.
Yeah, but it has to be online, but when you pay for Plus, you can stream it to your TV, your iPad, anything like that, your phone. So we went with those 2 things, Hulu Plus and Netflix. And I know every time I've said this, you guys have said something to me, but basically other things that, cable shows that I can't watch and I are on Netflix and Hulu, there is a website called watchseries.au or something like that. Now saying this, you're gonna like, I'll link it below and you guys can kind of explore it, but you know, it clicks on, okay, say I want to watch The Vampire Diaries, and I'll click on a season and it'll show a list of the one episode on all these different sites. I don't know how it's run or anything like that. I've never got like a virus from it, but sometimes when I click the links, it has a bunch of pop-ups and stuff like that, so it's a pain if you don't have a pop-up blocker. I do now, but sometimes there'll still be one will act like you can't play it without doing this, but there's actually an X at the top, and I just click it, it goes away. So if you're not comfortable with that kind of stuff, don't mess with it, but I'm just saying I've never got a virus from it. Now, I don't know, like, some people we know will get on a laptop, check their email, and somehow get a virus. If you're that kind of person, don't mess with it. But that is how I watch some of my shows, like Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I'm so sorry, I admit I watched that, but yeah, I watched that train wreck, stuff like that. But basically, also we download stuff. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah. So, anyways, cutting cable is one of the big things we did. Another big expense we had was my gym membership. And this was kind of my decision. I think it kind of shocked him because I had turned into, like, at the time I had been going to the gym a lot and been like really into it. But I told him one night, I'm like, you know, I'm going to the gym and mostly all I'm using is the treadmill. The rest of the stuff I was doing was floor work that the trainer I had taught me, where there's like a lot of medicine balls, a lot of weights, you know, like weighted balls, kettlebells, stuff, you know, stuff like that. Y'all get what I'm saying. I wasn't really using all those machines there. And I realized that I can do this at home if we buy a treadmill. So what we decided to do was we canceled my gym membership and we went to Academy and we started looking around at different stores. Academy, like wherever you can buy a treadmill. I called a bunch of places. Academy was having a sale. And they were selling also the floor models. So I went and got a treadmill for like 90 bucks, like a $400 treadmill. And the only thing wrong with it was that magnet thing. What was it that you had to fix?
Oh, the safety key that you stick in the thing.
Yeah, that it had a safety key, but it was like magnetic or something, and at first I just taped it down because it wouldn't stick, and when it fell off the treadmill wouldn't turn on, and I think that's why they're selling it for so cheap. But he was able to fix it. So I mean, if you're pretty good with that stuff, that's an option. Not all stuff on the floor clearance stuff is on sale, but I think they listed it for 90, but I was able to get it for like 75 because I was like, hey, the safety key's broken.
And the one next to it, there was nothing wrong with it. It was just a floor model. It was just a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, we were going within like what we had saved for too,
Right.
because it only took we waited about 3 months of me not paying my gym membership and saved that money to do that. So that's another way we cut down. And then overall, what we did was we kind of looked at budgets. Like I looked at the grocery budget and I was like, I don't really need to buy this all the time, or I was buying like all this different makeup stuff back then just to be like, oh, let me try this, and then I had all this crap I didn't use. I don't know if that makes sense, but there is spots in all of our budget that we kind of evaluated and cut down after seeing where our money went. So we didn't do this to necessarily be like, because we can't afford this. It was so we could create a way to build a savings. So where that money would go to cable, would go to the gym, would go to all this excess stuff, it was now going to savings.
So I mentioned before that the software that we use is called You Need a Budget. The basic concept, it's both a software and kind of a methodology for budgeting. And the basic idea is that you save money and build up what they call a buffer, where you're basically making sure that you have enough money in your bank to cover all of your bills for a month. So what we did, we obviously couldn't start off doing that because we weren't in the position. We were still living paycheck to paycheck at that point. It's just we were saving money by cutting back. So we started building up that buffer, and after a while we got to the point where we had about a month's worth of our expenses in the bank account as savings. So after we got about a month's worth of our expenses saved up, then we switched to putting that extra money that we were using to save towards the buffer into our savings for like our emergency fund or whatever. So about the actual budget, the way that it works is you assign your money into categories that you use to pay for things. It's almost like, it's very similar to envelope budgeting. In fact, it's almost exactly envelope budgeting with a couple of extra things thrown in.
And that's a Dave Ramsey thing.
Right, yeah, it's very popular. It's popularized by Dave Ramsey. So the general idea is you take all of your money that you have available to you and you assign it a job. And so, in our case, we've got a certain number of dollars that their job is to pay the mortgage, and a certain number of dollars that their job is to pay the car insurance, so forth and so on, groceries, etc. And then whenever something comes up, like we get our mortgage bill, then we use that money that was assigned to that purpose for paying the mortgage. Now, in our case, there's no separate accounts. It's all coming out of the same account, but
there's separate accounts for the budget for like our house and stuff like that. That's not so much what we worry about as we were worrying about budgeting which some people aren't going to be okay with doing that. So we're talking more like for us personally, this is how we budgeted where our restaurant money goes, everything but like our house note, our card note, and our lights and stuff like that.
Well, I still keep that on the budget.
Yeah,
because
of course.
It's assigned to the category, so we make sure that everything's in order there. But yeah, it's really important for things like, especially for items that fluctuate from month to month, like your groceries or even your electricity bill. If it changes between the winter and the summer, budgeting this way can kind of help you make sure that you've got enough to cover that. And again, that's where kind of looking at where your money is going is important too.
So basically, I'm gonna kind of, for lack of better words, I don't want to say dumb it down, but make it sound less confusing. I think because Justin's super familiar with how it works, sometimes it's confusing the way he explains it. So basically, using the budget software, you're going to figure out like how much you spend, where you can cut back. Then you're going to take what you cut back and apply it to savings. The biggest mistake people make is they're like, oh, now we cut all this stuff back and we have all this extra cash, let's go spend it on this. You have to act like that money is not there and needs to go into savings. You're going to build that savings so that you're living 1 month ahead, if that makes sense, to where I think an easier way of explaining it than what Justin was explaining it is if I was to lose my job, I would have an extra month to pay my salary, if that makes sense. Okay, so they suggest with the method that Justin uses, you only live, a month ahead is enough.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, at least. And there's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone needs to do it. We do. But personally, we were more comfortable getting to that point where we were a month ahead than rebuilding the savings that was emergency money, and getting it pretty big as an emergency fund, and then like stopping because we're like, okay, we're comfortable with this emergency fund. If something happened, we think it would be okay. And then going back to kind of rebuilding the living months ahead, if that makes sense. So whereas we were 1 month ahead, if he lost his job or I lost my job, then our bills would be covered. It wouldn't be a big deal for a month. And what we did was we saved more and more and more so that we're living a few months ahead. So if it makes sense, if he lost his job, we would have, let's say, 3 months worth of, you know, our bills paid, to where you can live your life as it was without stress. And that's kind of what living a month ahead means, kind of an easier way of explaining it, I feel like, to people like me, because I get really confused by stuff really easily. But basically, you have to be very diligent that any money you're saving doesn't exist. You can't get to the point that we are if you treat it like, oh, look here, we have this extra money. And it's kind of like with the Dave Ramsey snowballing thing, that we weren't capable of doing on our own, and that we did with our debt with that debt company, was that money doesn't exist because it gets rolled into something else. Think of it that way, you're rolling it into your savings. So for me personally, I like to see things separated. So we have a savings account, and anything that is emergency fund would be in the savings account, okay? And then where we live months ahead would be in the checking account that pays for pretty much the house, the light, all that stuff, that checking account that gets like the mortgage and stuff taken out of it, but also months ahead in our whole budget, like toilet paper, groceries, stuff like that. So that money kind of sits in there, so it's kind of separated, if that makes sense, from the emergency fund. And you don't have to do it that way. That's just how, I mean, a less confusing way of explaining how we do it. You just have to, another thing you have to treat the emergency money as is literally emergency money. Like, something has happened that is a emergency. A lot of people didn't understand, like, at least in our family and friends, is, but you know, we talk about savings and stuff like that with people in our lives. They're like, but why don't you just use your emergency money for your IUI? Because it's not an emergency.
Right.
What if I use that money for my IUI? We lost it because we didn't get pregnant, and then, you know, next week something terrible happens and you need emergency money, then you don't have it. You have to be very careful with that money. And everybody's different. You have to decide what's an emergency or what's important to your family. That's just how we treat ours. So anyways, I hope that kind of helps you guys. I'm sorry this is kind of a long video, but it's kind of hard to explain this stuff, you know, because we don't know everyone's budget. We don't know everyone's situation. This is just what worked for us. Anyways, this might kind of be like a trial and error for you guys. We didn't get this all down in like 2 months. Okay, we got this. This is working out great. It takes time. It takes a lot of time, especially to build up to the point we're at. So don't be disappointed. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to work at it, and you have to work together. Everyone in your family that has access to the bank account needs to understand the budget, and
everybody has to be on board.
Yeah, because if one person doesn't cooperate, it's going to mess everything up. And I say multiple people, it's not just spouse. Sometimes people have kids with bank cards to their account. So just to kind of re-summarize everything, you need to form some kind of budget, figure out where your money's going, cut back as much as you can where you can, and then you need to take that money and roll into a savings to where you get to the point where if you lost your job, you would have enough money to cover everything within your budget that you've come up with for at least a month. Then once you have that, then rebuild your savings, and if you feel extra paranoid like we are, then you can kind of go back, and once your savings gets nice and plush, start putting back for more months. So basically that's just what we do. All the stuff we talked about will be in the description box below. I feel like all these budgeting series could get super confusing. So what I'm going to do, I decided, is if you have any questions about any of these things, leave them in the comments below on those videos. When we're done with this series, I'm going to go back and pull out those questions, and we'll do a Q&A video to help you guys as much as we can. So basically, I will also link the first video we did in the description box below. I have 2 more videos coming out. how we rebuilt our credit. And before that, I will have a budgeting for Christmas video. So basically, any of those videos, leave us any questions or comments. They won't get answered until we do our final video and we get all the questions in, if we have any. And we'll see you guys later. Bye.